Hi, today I'm going to show you how to detail strip your Glock. This is a Glock 17 Gen 4 and by detail strip I mean everything that's removable is going to be coming off. It's not something you would do regularly to clean your Glock, just something if it's extremely fouled or if you're have a bit of OCD like me and do this probably once or twice a year. So let's get to it. To take the slide off, you're going to pull the trigger, pull back the slide a little bit. You're going to grab this slide lock here and it comes apart in two pieces. Now for general cleaning, all you'd really have to do, this is for routine maintenance, is just remove the barrel. You can put a brush in there and a couple of patches, clean that up, wipe it clean. Do some wiping here and maybe take a soft brush and just rub off any carbon deposits here and lube. But as I said, we're going to do a complete strip. We'll start with the slide and we're going to remove the firing pin. First thing we need to do is slide this back plate off. I'll show you how to do that. You can't just push it off right now because it's locked in. So the way we do that is take a small screwdriver and in here you can see a gap. You're going to want to push that down. You're going to push that down and slide off. We can now remove the firing pin. Take that out. We're going to move the extractor spring. Then we're going to remove the extractor. The way you do that is you want to push down this plunger. The extractor will fall out. Turn the slide upside down and the spring falls out. Okay, now that we have that done, we'll move along to the frame. Okay, now we have the frame. We're going to disassemble this as far as we can. First thing we're going to need to do is push these two pins out. I'm just going to grab one of my punches. They should come out fairly easily. You want to do the top one first and you want to take these out from the left side of the frame. So we're just going to push this one out. To get this one out, you'll want to put the slide lock lever. See how it's got some play in it? You want to push it forward a little bit because it actually locks into this pin. So we're going to push that forward. And as you can see, it's a little bit finicky. Okay, we got it. And we'll take that pin out. So we have the two pins out. Next thing we can do is remove the slide lock lever. That should just come right out. And now we have this piece, which is called the locking block. You can just put your punch under there and push up and remove that. Now we're going to remove the whole trigger assembly, including the whole trigger with the trigger bar. And to do that, you need to push this pin out here. I'm going to grab a slightly smaller punch, and again, it's just a matter of pushing it out. Going to remove your grip extension, and this whole assembly will come out. To go one step further, we're also going to remove the slide lock lever here. To do that, it's held in place by this leaf spring right here. So basically what you want to do is just push that leaf spring down. And try to get this on camera. You're going to push that little leaf spring right there down and it'll just fall right out. Additionally, you can actually remove that leaf spring if you like. Just grab a pair of needle nose pliers, reach in and grab it and pull it out. Now if you want to also remove your magazine release, this is a little bit tricky. I'm going to zoom in here to see if we can get a better view of what's going on in there. There we go. Okay, you'll see this, there's a bar spring right there, and that's what's holding and also provides pressure to the magazine release. So we need to push that off to the side and release it. What I use for that is just a small pick. I have one with an angle on it. It's a little bit hard to do at this angle. So basically you're just going to push that over and off. As I said, it's a little bit tricky. Okay, it's off. Now to remove the actual the magazine release button, you're going to have to pull that bar out. This incidentally is the way you would switch this if you were left-handed, to switch the magazine release to a lefty. So to pull that bar out, you're just going to reach in with your needle nose pliers and pull it out, and now the magazine release should just pop right out. So that's it, we've got all our parts. These are all the pieces that can possibly be taken out. Sorry about that. And now your frame is completely disassembled. These metal parts here are molded into the polymer, so they're not removable. Now you can further disassemble your trigger bar assembly. I'll show you how to do that. For this piece here, you're going to want to tilt it slightly this way and out, and you notice it's hooked onto the spring here. If you want to remove this, for instance, if you're going to polish these parts, which I've already done, there's videos on YouTube on how to do that. Makes them a bit smoother. Helps a trigger pull, supposedly. I didn't really notice any difference. The thing I did notice though is with these polished, it's a lot easier to clean the carbon deposits off them. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and again you're going to need your needle nose pliers. So you're just going to grab the end of the spring there and pop it off. That's pretty much all you can do to disassemble that. I believe there's a pin to hold on the actual trigger, but I'm fairly certain that's permanent and I don't plan on removing it. Now as far as this piece, this is the trigger mechanism housing. You can remove the, this is called the connector. You're just going to get under there with a screwdriver and gently, it's probably better close to the base because it goes in right there. Gently pry that up. Then you can just pull that off. This is another piece you want to polish if you're going to go that route. And that's it. That's the Glock completely disassembled. If you want to further disassemble the parts that came out of the slide, you can remove the extractor depressor plunger spring from the plunger. You can also take out the firing pin safety spring and the firing pin safety. You can just remove the spring from there. And you'd probably never want to do this, just for the sake of completeness. You can actually disassemble the firing pin and the firing pin spring. So I'll show you how to do that if you want to do it. You're just going to pull the spring back. Notice these two spring holders fell right off. Now the spring will just slide off and the firing pin can just slide right out of the sleeve. Additionally, I didn't know this until I accidentally found it, but inside the firing pin chamber here, there's actually a plastic spacer sleeve. You can order spares of those. I don't know why they'd ever wear out, but the only reliable way I found to get that out is to put a brush in there and it'll come out, because the brush will provide friction and pull the sleeve out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I've got a brush on my cleaning rod here. What you're going to do is just insert it. You'll feel it grabbing the side of the sleeve. And the sleeve should come out. As I said, you'd probably not ever have to do this. There we go. And here's the sleeve. There we go. And this is the, I believe this is called the spacer sleeve. So now we have everything completely disassembled, and we're going to go ahead and reassemble and show you where to lube your Glock. So we're going to start to reassemble the trigger mechanism housing, the connector bar, and the trigger bar. First thing you're going to want to do is put the connector back in. Don't need any tools for this. It just goes in right there. You can just push that in by hand. You're going to want to seat it all the way. Make sure you don't bend it accidentally while you're pushing it in. So now that's in, we're going to reinstall the trigger bar. So this goes on like that. The only tricky bit is reconnecting it to the spring. So I'm going to pull the spring back a little bit to make this a bit easier. And you'll see the hole right there. That's what has to hook onto the spring. Most of the time you don't need a tool for this. You're just going to want to press it on like that. You're going to want to make this spring is back, make sure that spring is back in place. Now to get this back in, it's just a simple matter of holding it on an angle and inserting it. And that's done. So we're going to move on to the frame now. The first thing you need to do, if you put this, if you put the locking block in first, you won't be able to get your trigger in. So the first step is to install the trigger. The housing block goes back here. You just push that down, and that's all there is to it. Now we're going to put in the locking block. Again, pretty simple. That just pushes in. Now we can add our pins back. The first pin we're going to want to install is the small one, which goes in the top, and these get inserted from the right side. So we're just going to go ahead and put that pin in. If your Glock is clean, a new Glock might be a bit harder, but you'll see I just push that in by hand. It's flush with this side of the frame, but it's not quite protruding or flush with the other side. So I'm just going to take my punch and push it in a little bit more, maybe a bit too far. I just want it centered in the frame. Okay, next thing we're going to do is put in the other pin and the slide lock lever. What I like to do is start this pin, push it in from the right side, and you'll be able to see there's a small groove here, a small opening. That's where your slide lock lever goes. You don't want this pin in so far as to block that. You probably can't see it on the video. There it is. I'm going to put it right there. The important thing is that this spring goes underneath that top pin. It's pretty much impossible not for it to go there. So you're going to slide it in, putting some pressure on this lower pin, and like I say, you might have to jiggle around the lever, and push it in. That's in. Check it for function. Appears to be working fine. And again, I'm just going to put this pin in a little bit further just by applying a little bit of pressure. There we go. Last thing we're going to install, sorry, not the last thing, we're going to put the slide lock back in. First step in doing that is to put the slide lock leaf spring in. So again, we're just going to grab it with a pair of pliers. Let me just show you this a bit closer. This is the part that actually engages the slide lock. The smooth part without the bend in it is what goes inside the frame of the Glock. So I'll just grab it lightly, and there's a small groove in there that just goes in, and that's it. The important thing to remember about the slide lock is it needs to go in with this grooved area. I'll try to angle it so you can see it. You'll see there's a small, or maybe you can't see it. Let's zoom in a bit. That's better. There's a small lip on this side, and it's smooth on this side. So you can see that sticking out. That needs to face the rear of the gun. In other words, it has to go in like that, with the grooved part facing the rear, the rear of the gun. So you can just start this just by sliding it. It's going to hit that spring, so you're going to need to depress that spring to get this back in. Pretty simple to do. You just press the spring down, and whoops. Times like these I wish I had another pair of hands. So you're going to push that in. Sorry if my hand's blocking here. You're just going to push the spring down, slide that in, and you'll hear it click. Now it's in. Again, check it for function. Make sure it's moving freely. Make sure the slide lock lever is moving freely. And now we'll go ahead and install the magazine release. Now the two pieces of this are the magazine release button and this bar spring. The bar spring goes in last, so we're going to go ahead and put the magazine release button in. Whoops, has to go in from the other side. So if you're righty, you want the grooved one on the left side of the gun. Comes in from the other side. There we go. It's lined up. Okay, we got the magazine release lever or button back in. Now we have to install this bar. So we're going to grab this bar with a pair of needle nose pliers. And my button has slipped out. So let's go ahead and put that back in. Now the bar just goes back in to that little hole way in the bottom there. Okay, it's in. We just want to push it all the way to the bottom, and you can use a punch for that. Okay, we've got that in. Now you need to hook it back in to the button. There's a small groove. Again, I'll try to zoom in. Sorry about the focus. There's a small groove over here on the trigger button. You basically need to just push that bar over until it locks in. Again, it's a pretty tough spring. Okay, that's in. So again, you want to check this for function. It's springing nicely back, and the bar is looped in. Okay, the last piece to go on for the frame is to put back the pin on the back of the grip here. If you don't use the grip extension like I do, you can just put the pin in there. However, I'm going to put my grip extension back in. And again, that should just push in by hand. And again, I'm going to use one of my punches just to make it flush. That looks pretty good to me. Okay, we'll move back to the slide and reassemble the firing pin and everything else. Okay, here's all the pieces we're going to be using. First thing we're going to do is put the firing pin assembly back together. We're going to put this sleeve on. We're going to put the spring on. You'll notice this spring is a little bit different on each side. There's more coils on the end there than there is there. I don't think it matters which way you put it back on. I put it on both ways and had no troubles. If there is a proper way, feel free to leave a comment. So I'm just going to put it on this way. And again, this part's a bit tricky because you have to put these two little tiny pieces to capture the spring at the end. So what I'm going to do is compress the spring down. Whoops. I'm sure the people at Glock have a tool for this. Okay, I've got it down, I think. So this comes in two halves. So we're going to put one half in first. We can release the spring because that will almost hold it. But now we need to get the other half in. So again, we're just going to pull back on the spring a little bit. Grab the other half. And that's back together. Check it for function. Looks good. Next thing we're going to want to do is put the this spring back on the extractor depressor plunger. This just snaps on the end. That's all there is to that. Now we're going to take the firing pin safety and put this small spring back. If you press down, you should hear a click, and that's captured. It won't fall back out. Okay, let's grab the slide. So here's that the firing pin channel sleeve. You're going to want to put that back in. That'll just slide right in. You might have to use a punch just to insert it all the way. Just want to make sure this is in as far as it possibly can go. Okay, that's in. Okay, we're going to basically put this back together the opposite way that we took it apart. So we're first going to put the firing pin safety in. We're not going to depress it yet because we need to put the extractor in. This will capture the extractor. While it's pressed down, we'll take the plunger, insert that. Now we can release everything because the plunger captures that firing pin safety. Go ahead and put the firing pin in. Now we can put the back slide on. So we're going to get it started. You'll notice it won't go in because it's being blocked by the firing pin and the plunger. So this is pretty easy. Just grab a punch, Push down gently. You'll see it's in partially now, but you need to push this plunger down to get it in all the way. Push that in, continue pushing it back up, and you'll hear a click. So that's it. We have everything back together. Got the slide back together and the frame back together. So now we're going to reassemble this and we're going to lube it. Glocks don't really like a lot of lube, or don't need a lot of lube rather. So I'm going to go by Glock's recommendations and tell you what Glock says about lubing your gun. Okay, we'll start with the frame. There's actually only one spot on the frame where Glock recommends that you lube, and it's on the, sorry, I forget what that part's called. It's on the connector, where the trigger bar makes contact with the connector. And I'm just going to zoom in a bit to show you what I'm talking about. So you can actually, I'm going to cock it here, and you'll see where it's rubbing, where the trigger bar rubs against the connector. So you just want to put a drop of lube there. Sometimes I'll use my hops, sometimes I'll use frog lube. I'll use the frog lube today. So basically you just want a single drop in there. And if you have a needle oiler, you can be really precise with this. Just going to work that in a bit. Might put one more drop back there. Seems pretty smooth. The rest of the lubrication is actually done on your slide. So we'll go ahead and grab the slide. Now as far as here goes, Glock recommends putting lube on the top of the slide, on the inside right there. The reason is, this is where your barrel will rub against the top of the slide there. So I'm just going to put a little bit of lube there, not a lot. Again, Glocks don't need a lot of lube. And the other place Glock recommends lubing are these slide channels here. I tend to put a little bit back here, a little bit up there, and again a little bit in the slide here and back here. Glock recommends that you do not put any lube in the firing pin channel, or lube the firing pin or the firing pin safety in any way. That's all that's required. The other thing Glock recommends is to put a small coating of lube around your barrel. And what I like to do is just put a little bit on and just rub it in with my finger. Doesn't really take a lot. Just want a very light coating. You can even wipe off the excess. Got a bit too much on there. That's it. Now you can reassemble. Reassembling the Glock is really simple. I'm sure you've done this many times yourself. Going to put the barrel in, or sorry, the barrel in. Lock this spring in. Going to grab your receiver. You're going to want to make sure, if you have been playing around with the connector back here, make sure the trigger is pulled before you attempt to put the slide on. So that's it. That's a complete disassembly, lube, and reassembly of a Glock 17. Thanks for watching, and please consider subscribing.